Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good morning. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Almost October coming up. Goodness, it is about 10:06 a.m. California time. And the latest activity looks like a 1.3 earthquake in Northern California. This comes after some heightened movement out here across the oceanic divergent boundary here in the southeastern Pacific Ocean. First, let's get into flaring activity, or solar activity, I should say. We've seen a pretty large M flare within the last few hours, spiking out here across the flare chart, almost the X flare category. And of course, we chatted about this last night. The culprit of it is going to be 3435, and that sunspot up here, this complex of sunspot regions here, looking pretty complex. 3435 is the culprit. Look at that dynamic setup here. Overall, this whole region is looking quite nice in terms of solar potential. Now, the flare itself, the M8.2, that was observed again just a couple hours or so ago. Beautiful feature that is Earth directed. Uncertain though on if it produced a CME or not. It doesn't look like it most of the time when there is a eruptive material produced with that X or the flaring. We would see this line drawn out and lasting for a little while, but this was a very quick, rapid, large M flare that kicked off again earlier this morning. We'll continue to watch that sunspot region. It does harbor some potential there of some stronger flaring. Again, 3435, 3438 region here. Also, a couple of these other sunspot regions are looking not quite as impressive, but they still harbor some potential for some flaring. Also, a newer sunspot coming around the southeastern limb down here. That looks like that may be potentially quite the active region as well. We'll keep an eye on all of these sunspots in the coming days. Right now, 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 40% chance. X flare remains low at about 1%, but I think that's a little bit higher, just looking at the complexity of the sunspot area. All right, what else we got? No major solar events headed this way yet, but if we do have a massive flare and the subsequent CME, we could be looking at, well, in this position here with that sunspot, we could be looking at some big-time effects on Earth if that were to happen, but we'll keep an eye on it. All right, earthquake activity. Let me jump over here to the USGS page, where we're seeing quite the earthquake activity out here across the divergent boundary of the, looks like the Go Far fracture zone area. Did see a 5.2, 6.0, and a 5.7 literally within just a few minutes of each other out here. Been a little while since we've seen that type of movement in a short amount of time here for this area. So something brewing up here, something spreading apart. These divergent boundaries here, of course, the oceanic crust, separation of seafloor, so to speak, is what's going on here across these fracture zones. And for the most part, in these divergent boundaries, things should kick up here. That's going to be right around this area. Should kick up further strain across this area of the Nazca plate over here against the Peru-Chile Trench. But also at the same time, it gets the Pacific plate going back up here again. This is a huge plate. And of course, the general GPS motion here and the arrows indicate that the general direction here of these arrows towards the northwest. That includes areas here across New Zealand, where they did see that earthquake activity last night. It looks like a Tonga area, and this region is filled in as well overnight. But New Zealand, 5.6 yesterday. GeoNet servers are still reporting that as a 6.0. Now, here is the latest information here from the geonet.org New Zealand site, where they mentioned about the 6.0 yesterday, striking about 11 kilometers deep. The DigiFillet reports out here, pretty significant, felt all over the South Island area. It is in a region where I guess two separate faults tend to meet here. These faults right here. Now, they mention as the magnitude was relatively small for a major fault, it was probably on a subsurface fault between these two known faults right here, the Bin one and the Lake Huron fault. Now, that can't be a good sign, right? If it's kind of taking place here on a major fault between these two, that could mean that something's definitely up here in terms of potential larger scale movement across the area of South Island. We'll definitely watch that. They mentioned here this area has no known historical quakes above M5.0, and the nearby large faults are estimated from landform evidence to have ruptured, not erupted, but ruptured several times in the recent geological past, so to speak, 18,000 years or so, but not since the European records have begun. So that means it could be overdue for a much larger quake there. Definitely keep an eye on that. These guys are talking about aftershocks. Looks like about 51 aftershocks or so following that main quake yesterday. Hopefully that was the main quake. Looks like 3.8 and the M3.6 have been the largest aftershocks so far. These guys are even doing the forecast, earthquake forecast here, similar to what the USGS does. I don't know who did it first, if the USGS did or the EMSC model or GeoNet or who knows. But these are just basically, you know, with anything in life, potential averages, whether it's a lottery, whether it's a stock market, whether it's, you know, earthquakes or volcanoes, there's always going to be a potential average, and they just throw in this forecast here, that word forecast. Probability of M6 and above is pretty low for the most part. Within about 30 days, though, it goes up. It looks like about 4% or so. So there's always, there's always that possibility of seeing a larger scale event. Similar to what we've seen in the Ridgecrest, California earthquake activity back July 4th, July 5th, 2019. Remember, we had that 6-pointer. And then on the 4th, July 4th, and then the next day, there was a bigger quake. So we just, you never really know what's going to be a main quake and what's going to be foreshocks. Either way, it's just good to be prepared. These are just numbers thrown up, for an agency. That way they can say they did something about it, or maybe they forecasted it. So just continue to watch that there across New Zealand area. Let's go over here to the GeoNet site. 42 minutes ago, 2.5 North Island. Getting a lot of activity stirring up north now, just off of, pretty close to the plate boundary, it looks like. Maybe off of it. Here's the Hikurangi subduction zone. A different type of plate boundary across here. This is a very, very dynamic setup. A lot of strain built up here. A lot of potential for large damaging earthquakes across New Zealand. That's just a fact. Not fear-mongering, that's just a fact. And there's many other faults that run inland here, away from the plate boundary. A lot of strain built up here across this area. But we're getting what looks like a little bit of further movement up north now. 17 kilometers deep, 23 kilometers deep for a couple of these twos. Let's take a look at the earthquake drums here and see what we have. Let's pinpoint, see if anything else is going on. Yesterday's activity, of course, that's pretty prominent. Showed up nicely, very nicely across South Island area. The main station looks like it's going to be this one right here, Rada Peaks. Very close to the epicenter of this earthquake activity from yesterday. And looking like today, it's obviously a lot quieter here in the last 12 hours compared to the hours following that 6-pointer there. But there's still some earthquake activity happening. And as always, there's that potential of seeing something larger or, or maybe around the same magnitude here as what we've seen yesterday there in New Zealand. And that's for the South Island area. I'm not seeing anything major going on up north. In the North Island region, of course, there's some smaller quakes kicking off here, it looks like, as noted on the GeoNet servers, their earthquake map, but nothing of major concern. But again, just be prepared, have an earthquake plan. Definitely getting some movement up here across the Tonga Trench area. We're waiting for this to fill in. And goodness, it looks like it filled in with some deep earthquake activity. Right, started off here, deeper movement. All that strain does build up over here quite a bit. So the last earthquake looks like a 4.6 here in the outside the Loyalty Islands region, 35 kilometers deep. We'll probably see that continue, the bouncing back and forth here between deep, shallow earthquake activity I'm not for certain if there's enough strain built up here at the surface levels of the subduction zone for some further large-scale movement. We have seen some recently, but it definitely looks like that we're returning back to that cycle of deeper activity, followed up by subsequent shallower activity here across the plate boundary. Either way, we'll watch it, see what happens. Some movement there yesterday in the Izu Islands region. Doesn't look like we've seen anything. Well, we got one 4.4 this morning, about 49 kilometers deep into the Japan Trench, but most of this activity here is from yesterday. So still some movement. Looks like it wants to pop up here across the Japan region. Of course, the Kuril-Kamchatka, that's a major subduction zone, major strain builder. And if you think about it, this area up here is backed up and reinforced by other plates here coming from the Eurasia plate, the North American plate. This is this should have popped off some large earthquake activity by now, but it hasn't. And that's a little concerning. That makes me think there that this thing's going to pop off a mega quake here, which is very capable across that subduction zone. Alaska area, one earthquake here along the Aleutian Trench from early this morning near the Rat Islands area, 4.3, 120 kilometers deep. Some deeper movement quakes. All right, let's check out the California region. Not a whole lot going on here through the Pacific Northwest, so it looks like a earthquake or two around Mount St. Helens still. In California, Northern California, some spotty movement. A couple earthquakes here in the last hour, but nothing major. Got a 2.6 near Stony Gorge Reservoir. It's a lake up here just outside of Willows. Looks like it's away from that area, though. You got Stony Gorge up here and then East Park Reservoir here. 4.8 kilometers deep underneath this area of the Coast Range Mountains. Further down south, a little spotty activity throughout the general region here. Doesn't look like we've seen anything major overnight. No elevated movement across the San Andreas Fault for now. Yellowstone National Park looks absolutely quiet, but let's just double check and see what's going on. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm really not seeing anything localized here. Maybe a couple small spikes over here. But generally out here things look pretty calm as far as earthquake activity goes. Not a whole lot of spikes across that region. And let's see what else. Anything major going on across the rest of the country? Some Colorado activity kicking up here. North of Trinidad area, 1.5 and a 2.2. New Madrid seismic zone, pretty quiet for now. Let's see here, across the Puerto Rico area, we did have further west here along the plate boundary, 4.4 in the Dominican Republic area just after midnight. And a little spotty activity here across the Puerto Rico Trench, mostly 2s and some 3s in there. One day building up for the big earthquake out there across the Puerto Rico region. Again, now this area across the, let's see here, across the Chile area, this region should show some movement here. In fact, it looks like we've seen that activity about the time that we've seen these divergent boundary earthquakes out here in the Central East Pacific Rise. This separation of the seafloor, right, going to add strain out here across the subduction zone, and right in the middle of all of it, we've seen some deeper movement quakes here into the Peru-Chile Trench, 174 kilometers deep for that 4.7. So you see that right in the middle of all this earthquake activity. So I'll definitely watch this. This area, like any other major subduction zone, doesn't take, thousands of years, hundreds of years to build up incredible strain to produce big, large, damaging earthquakes. It's just, this area could see one any day. Again, that's a major subduction zone, high accumulated slip rate. Big island of Hawaii, not a whole lot going on, just some movement out in the Pahala area. Kilauea volcano still currently resting. The rest of the world here looks pretty quiet as far as the USGS is concerned. GeoNet servers, or EMSC I should say, just very minimal earthquake activity out here today across the Mediterranean. Some movement down in Morocco, of course, that, like I keep saying, aftershock activity will continue for weeks, if not months, there following that larger scale activity a couple weeks ago. All right, let's see what we got here for space weather activity, or storm prediction scenario. I got space weather on my mind. Missy Mimi's earlier this morning was saying, I think we're going to have an X flare. I don't know. She's pretty sensitive when it comes to all the flaring and the solar activity. Never know. That sunspot does look pretty dynamic. All right. Marginal risk for some severe weather out here. Areas in the dark green, but for the most part, just generalized thunderstorm activity across a wide area of the country. Main threat today looks like just some wind. A little bit of wind out there. Never hurt anybody, did it? I don't think so. I love the wind. All right. Far as the tropical activity, we're watching some movement out here across the southeast here. Doesn't look like they picked up on it yet. Let's see what the numerical model looks like. It's going to be this area down here. Disorganized thunderstorm cluster. But last night's model was showing this gaining some steam, turning into some type of tropical depression or storm. And it still looks like it wants to hit that route here. But we'll continue to watch that, see if it does organize itself. Doesn't have a lot of time to do so. But we'll continue to watch that. California going to get some rain out here. I don't know about here where I'm at in the Sacramento Valley. I'm hoping we do. I would love some rain. But either way, we do have some cooler temperatures that are coming in to the area of the West Coast. And it looks like maybe another hurricane out here out in the Atlantic. We'll watch that, though. That's in the first week of October. Either way, cooler weather coming up here. Anything major going on across volcanoes here? Killer Whale Volcano, again, still resting. Active regions up across the Aleutian Trench. That's just what the USGS covers out here. There's always earthquake or volcanoes in eruptive stage in your typical regions across Indonesia and the Middle America Trench, but nothing unusual for now across the volcanoes that the USGS monitors. Mount St. Helens, well, there's still earthquake activity occurring up there, and they're still reporting on some of it. Today looks a lot less active. This activity right here, I think it's some wind event up there. I don't believe that's harmonic tremor or volcanic tremor. There is some earthquake activity up there, though. Let me see what the wind is. See what the wind is going on. How much wind we got up there. Got a well, it looks like a pretty strong high pressure system up here, bringing in some north upper level winds. Let's see what we got for the wind gusts. Obviously, right up here in the mountainous areas of Mount St. Helens area and other areas, you can see, and I'm sure these may be locally higher. Some wind gusts up there, probably above 30 or 40 miles an hour across the Cascades, and that's going to intensify with the system that's kind of spinning off the coast here, high pressure system. Here in California, we got a little fire weather watch coming in. That's all we need is some more fires starting out here. Looking at some pretty low dew points. Humidity levels are going to drop out here across California as well in the coming days. So again, we're underneath this fire weather watch out here right now. Dew point, that's going to change here overnight. Some lower dew points out here, lower humidity, increasing winds. Going to raise the fire hazards out here. Speaking of fires, let's see what we got here. As far as current fire information, haven't checked this in a little while. I do want California here. I don't want all of the West. Those are what are these? These are webcams and whatnot all over the place. This is actually kind of cool to look at. Get to see all the different areas. There's probably hundreds of webcams out here that monitor, the potential of lightning strikes and wildfires starting out here. I kind of like this idea, courtesy of PG&E. Well, whatever. Let's see here. Greater Tahoe. Where's California? I just want California. What's going on here? I know I'm not doing something right. Alert California. Here we go. I think this is the map. Doesn't look like it. I don't know where it went to. Maybe they changed everything up. Anyway, yeah, we still have a couple different fires out here right now. That's kicking up out there. Most of them are up here in the beautiful mountainous tree area of Northern California up here. It's a shame that everything's burning, but that's how it goes, unfortunately. Anyway, okay, I'm getting off center here, getting off course. We will catch you guys back here a little bit later on. Seismograph stations for now look pretty calm. I think main threat, got to watch this area across New Zealand. Space weather activity is somewhat elevated. Got a pretty good threat of some flaring coming up here across that area of 3435, 3438. And again, this area is going to be center disk here of the sun. And once this comes into position here, it could be a bullseye shot. Actually, if anything were to pop off here right now, we would definitely get the effects of it in the coming days as far as any massive CME goes. CME. So we'll continue to watch that. All right, guys. We'll catch you back here a little bit later on. Enjoy your Wednesday and stay safe out there.